The red emergency lights flashed through the corridors of the U.S. Intrepid as Captain David Mills gripped his command chair. His knuckles turned white as he watched Earth, humanity's home, burn in the main viewport. The massive battleship shuddered as another wave of energy washed over its shields. "Alice, status report." Mills called out to the ship's eye. A calm female voice answered through the ship's speakers. "Shield strength at 63%. Hull integrity stable. FTL drive charged to maximum capacity." The bridge crew worked frantically at their stations. They were humanity's last hope. 500 sailors and officers aboard the most advanced ship ever built. Behind them, the blue marble they called home turned orange with nuclear fire. "Sir," First Officer John Martinez's voice cracked as he spoke, "the last civilian ships. They're gone. We're all that's left." Mills closed his eyes for a moment. 10 billion lives, gone in less than a day. The attack had come without warning. Massive energy beams from deep space that turned Earth's greatest cities to ash. "Alice, plot an emergency jump. Maximum range. Get us out of here." Mills kept his voice steady for his crew. Lieutenant Emma Cooper looked up from her weapons console, her face pale but determined. "Captain, the enemy ships are closing in. 3 minutes until they're in firing range." The Intrepid was Earth's newest and most powerful warship. Built in secret over 15 years, she carried weapons and defenses that most of humanity never knew existed. But even she couldn't stand against the hundreds of alien ships that had appeared from nowhere to end human civilization. "Engineering reports FTL drive is hot, Captain," Chief Engineer Robert Hayes called over the comm. "But sir, at maximum power, we have no way to know where we'll end up." Mills nodded grimly. "Anywhere is better than here, Chief. All hands, brace for emergency jump." The massive ship's engines glowed bright blue as they powered up. On the tactical display, the enemy fleet grew closer. Their strange, curved ships looked like massive claws reaching out to grab the last piece of humanity. "Multiple weapons locks," Cooper reported. "They're charging weapons. Now, Alice. Jump now." The stars stretched into lines of light as the Intrepid tore a hole in space itself. The ship shuddered violently, and several consoles sparked. Mills felt like his body was being pulled in 100 directions at once. The jump lasted longer than any they'd done before. 10 seconds. 20. 30. The bridge crew held on as reality itself seemed to twist around them. Then suddenly, it stopped. "Jump complete," Alice announced. "All systems functioning within normal parameters." The bridge was silent as everyone caught their breath. Through the viewport, unfamiliar stars twinkled against the black of space. "Where are we, Alice?" Mills asked quietly. "Unknown, Captain. No known star patterns match our current position. Based on preliminary calculations, we have traveled approximately 2.3 million light-years from Earth." Martinez whistled softly. "Another galaxy. That's impossible." The Intrepid wasn't built to jump that far. "Apparently she was," Mills replied, studying the strange star field. "Alice, full sensor sweep. Let's see what's out here." The AI worked quickly. "Multiple artificial signatures detected, Captain. I am reading thousands of spacecraft and installations within sensor range. We appear to have emerged near a highly developed region of space." Cooper's console suddenly lit up with warnings. "Captain, massive energy spike. Something big just appeared off our port side." The view screen shifted to show an enormous structure emerging from what looked like a tear in space. It was easily 20 times the size of the Intrepid, shaped like a massive purple crystal with pulsing lights along its surface. "Incoming transmission," Communications Officer Lisa Wilson reported. "The Universal Translator is having trouble, but it's working now." A deep, resonating voice filled the bridge. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the sovereign space of the Scatheri Collective. Power down your systems and prepare for inspection. Resistance will result in immediate destruction." Mills looked around at his crew, the last survivors of Earth, the last free humans in existence. They had escaped one extinction only to face another threat. But this time, they were ready. "Battle stations," he ordered calmly, "but keep our weapons powered down for now. Let's see what we're dealing with before we show our hand." The crew moved with practiced efficiency as alert klaxons sounded throughout the ship. The U.S. Intrepid might be alone in a strange galaxy, but she carried humanity's legacy within her walls, and Captain David Mills intended to make sure that legacy survived. The massive purple crystal ship of the Scatheri Collective loomed over the U.S. Intrepid. 3 smaller ships, each still twice the size of the human vessel, moved to surround them. Lieutenant Emma Cooper watched them carefully from her weapons station, her fingers hovering over controls that could unleash enough firepower to level a continent. "They're scanning us," Chief Engineer Robert Hayes reported from his station. "But our shields are deflecting most of it. Wait." He leaned closer to his screen, frowning. "Captain, their technology. It's not as advanced as we thought." Captain Mills raised an eyebrow. "Explain." "Their energy signatures are inefficient. They're burning through power like a drunk through whiskey. Even their weapons." Hayes shook his head in disbelief. "They're using particle beam technology we abandoned 50 years ago." The alien voice boomed through the bridge again. "Primitive vessel, our scans show your hull is made of inferior metals. Your weapon systems appear basic. Submit now, and we may spare your crew for labor camps." First Officer Martinez couldn't help but laugh. "They think we're primitive because they can't scan through our shields." "Captain." Alice's calm voice interrupted. "I detect 27 distinct species aboard the alien vessels. Many show signs of physical stress and neural restraints. These appear to be slave ships." Mills' jaw tightened. Earth might be gone, but humanity's hatred of slavery lived on in her last survivors. "Send a response, Wilson. Keep it diplomatic." Communications Officer Lisa Wilson nodded and opened a channel. "This is the Earth vessel U.S. Intrepid. We are peaceful but will defend ourselves if threatened. We request open dialogue." The response was immediate and harsh. "Earth, we know of no such world. Your primitive vessel dares to make demands. We are the Scatheri Collective, rulers of 1,000 systems. You will submit or be destroyed." Cooper's console lit up with warnings. "They're charging weapons, Captain. All 4 ships." Mills remained calm in his chair. "Alice, analysis of their weapon capabilities. Their particle beams would have been devastating to Earth vessels from the 2100s, the AI reported. Against our current shields, they will be approximately as effective as throwing rocks at a mountain." The first blast hit the Intrepid. The bridge crew barely felt it. "Shields holding at 99.97%, Cooper reported, trying to hide her smile. They're hitting us with everything they have, sir." The alien commander's voice had lost some of its confidence. "Impossible. No ship could withstand." Fire again. Maximum power. More beams struck the Intrepid. The shields flickered slightly, creating beautiful patterns of light across the hull. "Should we power up our weapons, sir?" Cooper asked eagerly. Mills raised his hand. "Not yet. Alice, project our voice across all their ships. Let's try one more time to avoid violence." Wilson worked her controls, and Mills stood up to speak. "Scatheri vessels, this is your final warning. We have not yet powered up our weapons. We do not wish to harm you, but we will not submit to slavery or threats." The response came in the form of even more weapon fire, but this time there was something new. "Captain," Wilson called out, "I'm picking up transmissions from inside their ships. It's the slaves. They're watching us resist. They're praying to us." Hayes looked up from his engineering station. "Sir, I finished my analysis. Their entire empire is built on stolen technology they barely understand. They're bullies with copied homework, nothing more." Mills watched the massive purple ships continuing their useless attack. Each blast was a light show that proved human engineering superior to anything this mighty empire possessed. But it wasn't humanity's technology that made him proud. It was what they chose to do with it. Cooper, power up point defense systems only. Target their weapons. Minimal force. Aye, sir. Cooper's fingers danced across her console. Small ports opened along the Intrepid's hull, revealing rows of tiny turrets. The effect was instant. Precise beams of energy sliced through the Scatheri weapons arrays like hot knives through butter. Within seconds, all 4 ships were disarmed. Complete silence filled the communication channels. Then, from the alien ships, came the sound of cheering, not from the Scatheri, but from their slaves who had just witnessed the impossible. Signal coming in, Wilson reported, surprised. It's not from the Scatheri. It's from the enslaved species. They're begging for our help. Mills sat back in his chair, understanding the weight of this moment. The last survivors of Earth had just become hope for an entire galaxy of oppressed peoples. Send a response, Wilson, he ordered. Tell them help has arrived. The Scatheri commander couldn't accept his defeat. With his weapons destroyed and his pride wounded, he made the worst decision of his life. 3 smaller ships burst from the Crystal Mothership's hangar, racing toward the Intrepid at full speed. Suicide run. Lieutenant Cooper shouted, "They're going to ram us." Before Captain Mills could even give an order, Alice took action. The ship's AI had been built with one core rule: protect human life. The Intrepid's automated defense systems activated instantly. What happened next would become legend across the galaxy. Dozens of small, silver orbs shot out from the Intrepid's hull. They moved faster than any ship this Scatheri had ever seen. Each orb split into hundreds of tiny drones, creating a web of light around the human vessel. "Alice, what did you just launch?" Mills asked, watching the display in awe. "Standard anti-missile defense swarm, Captain." The threat required immediate response. The attacking ships never stood a chance. The drone swarm surrounded them, tiny beams of energy cutting through their engines with surgical precision. The ships drifted to a stop, dead in space, but with their crews unharmed. "By the stars," First Officer Martinez whispered, "we just disabled 3 ships with our basic point defense system." Communications Officer Wilson's console was lighting up like a Christmas tree. "Sir, intercepting thousands of transmissions. The Scatheri. They're calling us the Dark Ship. Their crews are panicking." Chief Engineer Hayes laughed from his station. "Dark Ship. Our hull is white." "It's not about the color," Cooper explained, reading the translations. "They think we're using some kind of dark magic. They've never seen drone swarm technology before." The main crystal ship was backing away slowly, like an animal retreating from a predator, but they had made one final mistake. In their panic, they activated their main weapon, a massive particle beam cannon hidden within the crystal structure. "Energy spike," Cooper warned. "They're going to." The beam fired, more powerful than anything they'd used before. It struck the Intrepid's shields head-on. For a moment, the human ship vanished in a flash of purple light. When the light faded, the Intrepid was completely unharmed. But something had changed. "Sir," Alice reported, "their weapon's energy signature has been analyzed and added to our database. I have formulated an appropriate response." A single port opened on the Intrepid's bow. A beam of blue light, no wider than a pencil, shot out. It touched the crystal ship's hull for less than a second. The massive vessel's power went dead. "What did we just do?" Mills asked, surprised by his own ship's capability. Hayes checked his readings. We copied their weapon, improved it, and sent back a precision strike that overloaded their power systems." Alice did it automatically. He shook his head in amazement. "Our ship just learned from their attack and turned it against them." Wilson's hands flew across her console as new transmissions poured in. "The slave species are revolting. The Scatheri crews have lost control of 3 decks already. On the main screen, they could see escape pods launching from the crystal ship. But they weren't Scatheri pods. They were carrying slaves, racing toward freedom. "Captain," Martinez said softly, "I don't think we can walk away from this. Those people need our help." Mills nodded. He thought of Earth, of how no help had come when they needed it most. "Wilson, open a channel to all escape pods. Tell them they're under our protection now." Cooper's console beeped. "Sir, we've got more ships entering the area. Lots of them. Word is spreading fast." "Multiple vessels approaching," Alice confirmed. 87 ships of various designs. Based on energy signatures, they appear to be Scatheri military vessels. Mills stood up, straightening his uniform. Earth was gone, but its last warriors had found a new purpose. The U.S. Intrepid had become a symbol of hope for countless enslaved beings. "Send a message to all approaching ships," he ordered. "Tell them that the people they called slaves are under our protection now. Any aggressive action will be met with appropriate response." The bridge crew watched as their sensors showed more and more ships arriving. The Scatheri Empire had ruled through fear for centuries, but they had never encountered anything like humanity's last battleship. The legend of the Dark Ship was about to grow. Captain Mills stared at the holographic display, showing the 87 Scatheri warships surrounding the Intrepid. Each one was bigger than his ship, their crystal hulls gleaming with purple energy. But size, he had learned, meant nothing in this galaxy. "They're keeping their distance," Lieutenant Cooper reported from her weapons station, "holding at 5,000 kilometers." Chief Engineer Hayes spoke up from his console, his voice filled with concern. "Captain, I've been studying the data from our last encounter. When Alice disabled that crystal ship, we may have done more damage than we thought." "Explain," Mills ordered. "Their technology is connected in ways they don't understand. That precision strike didn't just knock out their power, it spread through their network. Every Scatheri ship that was connected to their main fleet. They all lost their advanced weapon systems." Communications Officer Wilson's eyes widened. "Sir, incoming reports confirm it. Slave revolts are breaking out across 50 systems. The Scatheri can't control their ships anymore." First Officer Martinez shook his head. "We didn't mean to start a revolution. We were just defending ourselves." "Multiple transmissions incoming," Alice announced. "The Scatheri Empire is declaring us a Class 1 death entity. But the slave species, they're calling us the Great Liberator." Mills felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The last human battleship had accidentally crippled an empire with a single shot. Now millions of enslaved beings were fighting for their freedom, all because the Intrepid had shown up and proved the Scatheri weren't invincible. "Sir," Cooper called out, "we're being hailed. It's different from the others." On the main screen appeared a creature Mills had never seen before. It looked like a cross between a deer and a dragon, with scales that shifted colors as it moved. Behind it stood representatives of 6 other species. "Great ones," the creature spoke, its translator making its voice sound musical. "I am First Speaker Relith of the Free Worlds Coalition. We have waited generations for someone strong enough to break the Scatheri's power." Mills stood up straight. "We didn't come here to destroy an empire. We're refugees ourselves, looking for a new home. Yet you have done what none other could." Ryleth responded. "The Scatheri's power was built on lies and stolen technology. You showed us the truth. Now we ask for your help, not as gods or destroyers, but as teachers." Hayes whistled softly. "Captain, they want our technology." "No," Ryleth corrected. "We want your wisdom. The Scatheri gave us technology we weren't ready for. You humans, you understand your tools. You use them with purpose and restraint. Teach us this." The bridge crew looked at each other. They had come here running from humanity's destruction, and now they were being asked to build something new. "Sir," Alice interrupted, "long-range sensors detect Scatheri reinforcements arriving. Over 300 ships, but..." The AI paused. "They're old models. Their weapon systems are even more primitive than the others. Cooper checked her readings. They're desperate, Captain. They're sending everything they have, even museum pieces. Mills watched the fleet of ancient ships approaching. The Scatheri were showing their true nature. An empire that had stolen its way to power, never bothering to understand what they took. Now they were reduced to using antiques against a single human vessel. Wilson, he ordered, send a message to all ships in the sector. Tell them that the U.S. Intrepid offers protection to any species seeking freedom. But warn them, we won't tolerate anyone trying to become the next Scatheri Empire. Message sent, Wilson confirmed. Sir, the responses. Hundreds of ships are changing course. They're coming to us. Not just slaves, even some Scatheri ships are defecting. Martinez smiled. Looks like not all of them enjoyed being the bad guys. Mills sat back in his captain's chair, watching the stars through the main viewport. Somewhere out there, Earth was still burning. But her last children had found a new purpose. They weren't gods or conquerors. They were teachers, protectors, showing the galaxy of oppressed peoples how to stand up for themselves. Alice, he said quietly, start preparing education programs. If we're going to help build a new civilization, we're going to do it right. Already done, Captain, the AI responded. Shall I begin broadcasting the basics of democratic governance? Mills nodded, hope filling his chest for the first time since Earth's fall. The Intrepid had come here as a refugee, but now they were something more. They were the spark that would light up a galaxy. And the legend was only beginning. 3 weeks after the Intrepid's arrival, the ship's massive cargo bay looked like an alien marketplace. Lieutenant Emma Cooper walked between rows of different species, all eager to learn from the humans who had changed their world overnight. No, hold it like this, she told a tall, four-armed alien as she adjusted his grip on a training weapon. Remember, technology is just a tool. Your mind is the real weapon. Across the bay, Chief Engineer Hayes worked with another group, teaching them about basic engine repair. Always understand how things work, he explained, pointing to a holographic display. The Scatheri failed because they only knew how to copy, not create. Captain Mills watched from an observation deck above, First Officer Martinez at his side. 200 ships now, Martinez reported, reading from his tablet. All former slaves or Scatheri defectors, all wanting to join what they're calling the Human Alliance. Mills shook his head. We're not starting an empire, John. We're teaching them to be free. Sir, Communications Officer Wilson's voice came through the comm. Emergency signal from the Drachnid system. The local Scatheri governor is threatening to blow up their sun if the slaves don't surrender. Mills rushed to the bridge, Martinez right behind him. When they arrived, Wilson played the message. The Scatheri governor's face filled the screen, his crystal-like skin cracked with rage. You think your dark ship has freed you, he snarled. Submit, or I will destroy this entire system. Alice, Mills called out, analysis. The governor has modified a solar harvester into a weapon. The AI reported. Crude, but effective. He could indeed destabilize the star. Cooper, who had followed them to the bridge, checked her weapons console. We can't shoot it without risking the star ourselves. We don't need to shoot, Hayes said, studying the data. Captain, remember how Alice learned from their weapons? Well, I've been studying their technology. We can hack it. Mills nodded. Do it. Hayes and Alice worked together, sending carefully coded signals through space. On the main screen, they watched as the solar harvester suddenly turned, pointing at the governor's palace instead of the sun. What? What is happening? The governor demanded. This is the U.S. Intrepid, Mills responded calmly. You have 1 minute to surrender. Your weapon is now under our control. They watched as panic spread through the governor's command center. Within 40 seconds, white flags appeared above the palace. Sir, Wilson reported, joy in her voice, the Drachnid slaves are taking control of the planet. They're singing Earth songs, the ones we taught them. Martinez laughed. Amazing what a few human work songs can do for revolution. The bridge crew watched as ships launched from the planet, former slaves now piloting their own vessels. But they weren't running wild or seeking revenge. They were organizing, just as the humans had taught them. Incoming transmission from first speaker Relith. Wilson announced. The deer dragon alien appeared on screen, his scales shimmering with excitement. Great news, friends. The Free Worlds Coalition has completed its first democratic election. We used the system you taught us. One being, one vote. Mills smiled. And who won? A former Scatheri slave master, Ryleth said proudly. She spent years secretly helping slaves escape. Now she will help us all build something new. This is what you humans call justice, yes. Judging by actions, not species. Exactly right, Mills confirmed. Suddenly, Alice spoke up. Captain, long-range sensors detect a massive energy signature. A Scatheri super-dreadnought is approaching. It appears to be their flagship. Cooper's hands moved to her weapons station, but Mills held up his hand. No, he said. We've shown them enough force. Wilson, open a channel. The image of an elderly Scatheri appeared, his crystal skin dulled with age. I am High Admiral Kexti. I come to negotiate. Mills stood tall. We're listening. Our empire is finished, Kexti said quietly. You destroyed us without firing a shot. Your mere presence showed everyone our weakness. We wish to learn, to truly learn, not just copy. Will you teach us too? Mills looked at his crew, at the former slaves training in the cargo bay, at the free ships flying around them. The last survivors of Earth had found their purpose. Yes, Mills answered, but you'll learn alongside everyone else. No more empires, no more slaves, just free people working together. As the High Admiral bowed in agreement, Cooper whispered, Earth would be proud of us. Mills nodded. The Intrepid hadn't just survived. It had brought hope to an entire galaxy. 2 months after the Intrepid's arrival, Captain Mills walked through his ship's newly expanded diplomatic center, what used to be the secondary cargo hold. Around him, representatives from 30 different species sat together, learning about human concepts like democracy, individual rights, and scientific method. Captain, a young Scatheri engineer waved him over, her crystal skin glowing with excitement. We finally understand how our own engines work. All these years, we thought they were magic crystals, but they're actually quantum field generators. Mills smiled. Teaching the Scatheri had been surprisingly rewarding. Once they stopped copying and started learning, they proved to be brilliant students. But his smile faded as First Officer Martinez rushed in. Sir, we need you on the bridge. Now. When they arrived, Lieutenant Cooper was already briefing the crew. A massive hologram showed hundreds of ships approaching from the edge of the galaxy. They call themselves the Nexus Dominion, Cooper explained. They're even bigger than the Scatheri Empire was, and they're not happy about the changes we've caused. Communications Officer Wilson played a message. A cloud of shifting smoke appeared on screen, taking a rough humanoid shape. Lesser beings, the smoke creature said, we have watched your disruption of the natural order. The strong must rule the weak. This is the law of space. Remove your vessel and restore the Scatheri Empire, or face extinction. Chief Engineer Hayes snorted. More bullies who don't understand their own tech. Want me to scan them, Captain? No need, Alice responded. I already have. Their technology is more advanced than the Scatheris, but they suffer from the same flaw. They steal rather than innovate. They currently use 147 different technology types, none of which work properly together. Mills watched the approaching fleet. The Intrepid had become more than just a ship. It was a symbol of hope for billions, but hope needed protecting. Send a message to all our allies, he ordered, but not a call for help. Send them everything we know about the Dominion ships. every weakness, every flaw. Let them decide what to do with it. Wilson sent the data. Within minutes, responses flooded in. "Sir," she reported, amazed, "ships are launching from every Allied system. Not just warships, civilian vessels, cargo ships, even mining platforms. They're all coming to help." Martinez checked the tactical display. 5,000 ships and counting. Former slaves fighting alongside reformed Scatheri. They're calling it the Freedom Fleet. The Nexus Dominion ships drew closer. Their massive vessels looked like dark storms moving through space, but the Intrepid and its allies stood firm. "They're broadcasting again," Wilson announced. The smoke creature reappeared, its voice angry. "You dare to resist. We are the Nexus Dominion. We have ruled space for 10,000 years." Mills stood up. "We are humanity's last survivors. Our world was destroyed, but our spirit lives on. We don't want to rule anyone. We want to teach everyone to rule themselves." "Then you will die first," the creature snarled. The Dominion fleet opened fire, but they didn't expect what happened next. Every ship in the Freedom Fleet was using technology they truly understood, modified and improved with human guidance. Former mining lasers cut through Dominion shields. Cargo tractor beams pulled their ships off course. Even civilian vessels contributed, their combined sensor networks tracking every Dominion movement. The Intrepid itself hardly needed to fire a shot. Its allies were proving that knowledge and cooperation were stronger than stolen power. "Sir," Cooper reported with pride, "the Dominion fleet is retreating. The Free World's coalition ships are cheering across all channels." Hayes laughed at his engineering station. "Did you see that? They used their cargo ships as shield generators. We only suggested it might work, and they figured out how to do it themselves." Mills watched as the mighty Nexus Dominion fled from the combined power of former slaves and reformed oppressors. Earth was gone, but humanity's best qualities lived on in the beings they had taught. "Captain," Alice spoke up. Incoming message from first speaker Raylith. Priority 1. The deer dragon appeared on screen, his scales shimmering with all the colors of victory. "My friends, the Council has voted. We want to make it official. Will you help us form the United Systems Alliance? Not an empire, but a union of equals, with the Intrepid as its guardian." Mills looked at his crew. They had started as refugees, become teachers, and now, "Yes," he answered, "but only if every member has an equal voice." As cheers erupted across thousands of ships, Mills smiled. The galaxy was changing, and humanity's last battleship had sparked a revolution of hope. 6 months after the U.S. Intrepid's arrival in this strange galaxy, Captain David Mills stood before the newly formed United Systems Alliance Council. The Great Hall, built in record time by 100 different species working together, was shaped like the Intrepid herself. Through its crystal windows, thousands of ships could be seen orbiting the Alliance's new capital world. "The vote is unanimous," First Speaker Raylith announced, his scales glowing with all the colors of dawn. "The United Systems Alliance is now official, with the Intrepid as our guardian ship." Mills looked at his crew, standing proud beside him. Lieutenant Cooper, who had taught defense tactics to former slaves. Chief Engineer Hayes, who had shown the Scatheri how to truly understand their technology. Communications Officer Wilson, who had helped 100 species learn to talk to each other. First Officer Martinez, who had taught the basics of democracy to beings who had never known freedom. And Alice, the ship's eye, who had surprised everyone by teaching other artificial intelligences how to work with their organic creators instead of trying to control them. "Captain," a young Scatheri council member stood up, her crystal skin shimmering. "We have a gift for humanity." The great doors opened, and a massive hologram appeared in the center of the hall. It showed a beautiful blue-green planet. "We found it in the unexplored regions," the council member explained. "It's almost exactly like Earth, based on the data you shared with us. We would be honored if humanity would accept it as their new home." Mills felt tears in his eyes. But there are only 500 of us. Not anymore, first speaker Raylith said with pride. Remember the genetic samples in your ship's medical bay. Using the techniques you taught us, we've perfected the cloning process. If you agree, we can help humanity grow again. Cooper grabbed Mills' arm in excitement. Captain, we could have children again. A real human colony. Martinez stepped forward. But what about the Intrepid? We can't abandon our duties to the Alliance. A tall, four-armed alien engineer raised all his hands. We've learned enough from you to build more ships. Not copies, but new designs, combining human innovation with all our different technologies. The Intrepid will be the first of many Guardian vessels. Hayes studied the technical readouts with amazement. They're right, Captain. These ships, they're better than anything Earth ever built. Because they're not just human technology. They're the best of everyone's knowledge combined. Wilson's console beeped. Sir, incoming transmission. The Nexus Dominion. The smoke creature appeared on the screens, but its tone was different now. We have watched. We have learned. Your way of teaching instead of conquering. It is strange to us. But we wish to understand. If you would permit it, the Dominion requests observer status in your alliance. The hall erupted in cheers. The last human battleship hadn't just changed an empire. It had changed an entire galaxy's way of thinking. Mills stepped up to the speaker's platform. When we fled Earth's destruction, we thought we were running away to die. Instead, we found a way to help humanity live on, not through conquest or power, but through teaching and cooperation. He looked out at the assembled beings, former slaves and masters, engineers and warriors, all working together. The Intrepid wasn't just a battleship. She was Earth's last gift to the universe. And together, we'll make sure that gift keeps giving. Alice's voice echoed through the hall. Captain, sensors detect the first successful birth in the new human colony. It's a girl. Her name? Mills asked softly. The parents named her Hope. As celebrations broke out across the Alliance, Mills watched the streams of ships flowing past the windows. Cargo vessels and warships, passenger liners and mining craft, all flying together under the same banner. Earth was gone, but humanity's spirit had spread across the stars. The U.S. Intrepid still stood proud in orbit, her white hull gleaming in the starlight. She was no longer the dark ship that brought ruin. She was the light ship that brought freedom. Ready for our next patrol, Captain? Cooper asked with a smile. Mills nodded. Alice, send a message to all Alliance ships. Tell them that humanity accepts their gift, and in return, we promise to keep teaching, keep helping, keep showing the galaxy a better way. As the Intrepid's engines powered up, 100 different species watched in awe. The ship that had arrived as a refugee had become a legend. The last survivors of Earth had found more than just a new home. They had created a new future for an entire galaxy. And somewhere on a new Earth-like planet, a baby named Hope took her first breath. Proof that humanity's greatest legacy wasn't its technology or its weapons. It was the ability to turn enemies into friends and show others how to be free.